Hello there, welcome to Cannonball Diva Chronicles, where uplifting the downtrodden is our focus. I just want to shout out to everyone that has wished me a very happy birthday within the last week or 2 weeks. I've had such a busy month. The month of December is such a happy month for me and my family because aside from the fact that the main part of it is that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was born in this month, so also was I. And to make it even more important, I marked my 50th birthday, which seems like a dream to me because it just seems like yesterday when I was 20 years old, 19 years old. It seems like time had just flown by, and many things have happened within that time frame, and I'm thankful for every single one of the things that I have experienced. It has made me a stronger person and has made me the person that I am today. And it has most importantly drawn me closer to God, which is the most important part of it, because it is God alone that has brought me this far. And I have Him alone to thank for my journey. I would like to shout out to my family members who went to Dubai with me, who celebrated with me, the friends who came with my in-laws, and the friends who also came, who lived there, some of them who were able to come around during the party. It was such a lovely time that I think my children, who are also part of the party, will never forget. And for those of you who reached out to me by calling me or sending me messages or email messages or Facebook messages, which, by the way, at some point I couldn't respond to because Facebook actually restricted my comments. It's still restricted for the next week or so because I think they tagged one of the musical background tracks that was used by my videographer as not being, I guess we didn't mention the fact that it didn't belong to us, which obviously I believe that everybody already knew that, but that is something that I had failed to note. So I couldn't really go in there and say thank you to everyone who had wished me happy birthday at some point on Facebook, but this is my way of saying thank you. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to wish me a happy birthday and who have, said so many kind words to me. One of which was like, I don't look my age, which I believe I do, but thank you anyways. I believe that, God has been kind. We ask God not to make us look like what we have been through. And I certainly give it all to God for every single thing that I have. Even the voice that I have to speak today. You can hear it's a little bit hoarse. I'm just recovering from a cold. And that's why I haven't really recorded any videos in the last week or so, aside from the fact that I was recovering from the party. Because the party is like work. You're working and taxing your body, dancing till the morning, having fun, back to back to back to back. A vacation like that is always like work. It takes its toll on your body as well. So I think I needed to recover from my vacation. So I've taken like a whole week off from work. I've not worked. And I really thank every single one of you who have been part of this journey. And I'm happy to be back. I mean, even though I'm coming back with a topic that is a little bit sobering, the topic of Mr. Emeka Ike and his wife, Emma or Susan, who have been in the limelight in the last few weeks. And the reason I decided to speak on this matter, on this story, is because aside from the fact that is running the rounds on social media, it's a very important story that we as people can learn a lot from. I, as a person, I can say I can relate to Emma. I can relate to what she has experienced. So I'm talking about her story from my own point of view. And I'll try not to be biased, and I'll try not to actually impose my own views on you guys, the viewers who are listening to me, because of my own experiences. I try not to always come back to my own experiences, but it's hard not to because you're a human being. And when you hear a woman like that speak her life, to speak about her life and tell her truth about what she has experienced in her life, you as a person who can relate, you're triggered in a way because you can actually look at her and say she's telling the truth because you have that experience or similar experiences as well. That's not to say that I do not believe that Mr. Emeka is telling the truth as well. At some point, maybe that's his truth. That's his truth. So the question we have today, which I want to ask you guys, the viewers, is: do you guys believe that Mr. Emeka Ike is a narcissist? Does he come across as a narcissist? Because I've mentioned many times before the traits of a narcissist, and when he speaks and the videos that I've watched at least 10 different videos of him speaking. And even without Miss Emma or his wife, his ex-wife, coming out to talk about her own experiences, just hearing him speak and looking at his body language, just watching him talk and the way he speaks about her, it's not difficult to see that there's something somewhere that's missing. There's something somewhere that he's not saying. Because as you can tell, every single thing he says about her is negative. Every single thing he says about her is blaming. Everything he says about her is focusing on what she did wrong in the marriage and not what he did wrong. And if we can go back to the traits of a narcissist, they are never able to accept blame. They never accept that they had a hand or had a role to play in the demise of their relationship. No matter what they did, they never see what they did as being wrong. For the past 10 years, he has been coming, time and time again to talk on social media and even on television, on Channels TV. I'll try and post what I can post today about, some of the things he has said. I'll try to put as much as I can in the video about the way he speaks about his ex-wife. Without her having come out to say anything about him, he kept coming out from time to time to talk about her. And this is a person that claims that he has gone to get married. He has gotten married to a South African woman and he has a child by her, I think 2 children by her, who he did a shout out to on one of his interviews. I believe it was a Channel TV interview. He did a shout out to his 2 children, one of which happens to be the namesake of one of my children, Oluchuku. And that's why I remember the name. So he has moved on, obviously. He has moved on with his beautiful South African wife. He has 2 children with her. And one would expect that with this new life that he has with his new family, he wouldn't be so negative about his ex-wife, who has been silent for the past 10 years and hasn't said a word back to defend herself against his acrimonious and negative accusations against her. One of the things he accused her of was she had closed his school immediately he had gone for a trip which he had taken, I believe, to a different country. And at that point, his wife had taken the opportunity to close his school in Nigeria, which he claimed to be worth 480 million naira. I believe that's what he said. And this school in question, we eventually found out that this school does not really belong to him. The property itself is rented and the landlord owns the building. And this claim that he has lost so much money because she told the students to pack up their things and look for a different school, that the school was going to close immediately. And he had caused him to lose so much money because she had planned this with her kidnappers, according to him. He has so many different tales to say about his wife, that she's been blackmailed by kidnappers, that he had some gunmen at his gate threatening his life because he believed his wife had gotten engaged with them, and now they had backfired. I mean, their actions had backfired against her because they wanted him and they couldn't get him because he had escaped them, and now they were targeting her. And that's why she had to run for her life and leave the marriage. So he blames the supposed blackmailers for causing his wife to leave the marriage, and not the fact that he was the one that beat her or treated her in such a bad way, which eventually she confessed to and caused her to leave the marriage. So you can see the glaring picture here that he looks for every single opportunity to blame his wife divorcing him on different people, but he fails to point the finger at himself. He even blames her at some point, and I'm going to try and put this also on the video, on this short video, where he says, and when you watch him say this, it's so shocking how his eyes are wide open. He looks abnormal to me when he opens his eyes so wide and says, "Oh, she didn't divorce me. She divorced herself. She didn't divorce me. She divorced herself." Because in his mind, nobody can divorce him. He's too good to be divorced. Like, accepting that somebody actually left a narcissist is one of the most painful things they can accept. It makes them, I believe, it makes them get to a point where they become so depressed to believe that somebody can actually reject them. That rejection is what makes them keep denying that nobody can ever leave them. So in his mind now, he's saying his wife was forced to leave him, that she was forced by the blackmailers and threatened by the blackmailers to leave him or die. He's going as far as stating that His wife didn't leave her of her own accord, because he never believed once in his life that his wife would come out and defend herself and speak the truth. And after all of this talking, this negativity and all of these twisted tales that he kept putting out into the limelight, his wife eventually came out to talk to Chude. His wife spoke to Chude very frankly, and you can see how sweet and calm, and this is not to say that people don't pretend, but it's hard to pretend to be someone you are not for how many years? She came out to speak out her own story and her own truth about what happened in the relationship. And she clearly mentioned how for many years, Mr. Emeka Ike had abused her, not just physically, emotionally and psychologically. And she went as far as telling us stories about how one day when her son was sick and she had gone to the hospital to care for him, and they didn't have the money at that point to provide to the hospital, and the hospital didn't want to care for the child, because that's how it is in Nigeria. I mean, you have to pay to get treated. And she was trying to negotiate with the hospital about paying later at a later time. And as she was trying to talk to the officials in the hospital, Mr. Emeka barged in very angrily, accusing her of being very stupid and telling her that the people that she was trying to negotiate with were beneath her, and she was crazy and she was stupid and she couldn't do anything right in front of them, and asked her why she was stooping so low to talk to them, that they were beneath her. And she got angry and told him, ask him not to be a Jerk. She used that word, and she walked away when she said that. She said, ask him, why are you being a jerk? And she walked away. And when she walked to the car, she said shortly after she saw him walking towards her angrily. And the next thing she saw was that his fist, the first thing she felt was his fist against her right chin. And he punched her in the face right in front of the onlookers and everybody there. She was parked, the car was parked in a car park outside the hospital. And she mentioned how he beats her at the slightest provocation. At one point, another occasion, she mentioned that the baby had a diaper rash, and it was a bad one, and she was trying to treat it because she was treating it with Vaseline at that point, which, by the way, is not the usual treatment, but we give her that much. Maybe he wasn't providing enough funds for her to buy the zinc oxide, which many people use, or the Panatin, which many people use to treat diaper rash. So she said the diaper rash was getting worse. And as time went on, it was looking red. And then her husband had noticed and automatically assumed that it was somebody had molested his child, and that's why she looked like that. And he accused his wife of not taking care of the child, and asked her where she had taken this child to cause this child to be molested. And she kept denying that no, it had nothing to do with that the child had a diaper rash and it was just red because of the Vaseline she was putting in, and she didn't put powder because the powder wasn't working. And she kept trying to explain. Now after some time, when her husband kept insisting that the child was molested, she now said, okay, so bring money now, let's go to the hospital. If that's what you think, let us take this child for treatment. And she said the way she responded got him really angry, and he punched her and beat her to the ground. And as he beat her to the ground, she said at some point she held his hand, and she said, because she said, you can't keep hitting me. Obviously, not even an animal, after a while, a sweet loving dog that you have can become very vicious and attack you if you keep hitting that dog. At some point, that dog will try to defend itself. How much more a human being like you that has an intellect and has a mind of their own? She held his hand and tried to stop him from hitting her, and he got so angry, and obviously he's bigger than her. She said he turned her over and hit her at the nape of her neck, and that is where the spinal cord is joined to the connection of the spinal cord is in the neck. She said these people, when they are angry, it's like they're taken over by a demonic spirit, and they do the worst thing they can do. It's almost as if they're looking to kill you. That's how bad it is when a narcissist gets angry. It's like they take leave of their senses. And let me tell you this, the look in their eyes is not normal when they are doing all of this stuff. It doesn't look, because later they will wake up to the fact that they've done something, and by that time it's too late. And all you hear is sorry when it's done, when the person's life has been either ended or destroyed. So she said she did this to her, turned her over and hit her at the nape of her neck. And she said immediately she lost all sensation. She couldn't feel her hands, she couldn't feel her legs, she couldn't feel any part of her body. And she just laid there with her eyes wide open. She could still hear him. She could still talk. She could still express herself, and she could still see and hear everything that was going on. And she said she saw him walking away because he saw the fact that obviously she wasn't moving anymore and the look in her eyes. And she told him, if you hit me one more time, she said to him, you're going to kill me. She said he walked away. She said, but that didn't stop him when she said that. He kept hitting her until he had released all of his anger on her. And he walked away and came back and said to her, it's not me, it's you that makes me like this. And that is it. That is the point where you know that this person that is doing you harm is blaming the victim, blaming you for everything they are doing. That is exactly the one of the biggest traits of a narcissist. They are killing you, they will kill you, and they will still come back, and even at your burial or your when you are being buried, have nothing good to say about you, that you caused them to kill you. That is how demonic the anger of a narcissist can be. She said that's when a bell went off in her head when she saw him say this. Because she had been going online and researching, good for her, about what the sociopath is and what the psychopath is. And she said she went through the traits of all the sociopathic traits that she saw online. And she said everything ticked. Everything ticked. Everything she saw, all the traits, more than 10 traits, fit her ex-husband to the T. And that's when she started calling her family members and telling them, look, this guy is this guy is a sociopath. And many of them, you know how African family members are, they never want to get involved. You can't really blame them though in a marriage, because they believe that when you people settle, you will use them to settle. In other words, you will say, you will now start discussing the fact that this person didn't support me, this person supported me leaving you, and then they will now become the enemy. So many people, especially in an African background, do not believe or do not promote saying anything negative, even after you have left, about your wife or your husband, no matter what you call them, to tell them to say that he or she did. They prefer to just be neutral, which, like I said, you can't really blame them for, because many people eventually resolve their issues in marriage, and then the people who were saying things about them eventually get discussed in their other room, and then those names and those people become their enemies. So, but in this case, her life was at stake. And she said her own sister told her that many times when she would tell her sister what this Mr. Emeka was saying to her or doing to her, she would say, oh, he didn't mean it like that, he was just angry. Or he didn't mean it like that, he was just trying to scare you. She said that is the response she was getting from many family members. She just had to take things into her hands, and she started to plan her escape. And eventually, she left. She left with only the clothes on her back. She left with just the bag in her hand. And I'm telling you this, as I speak now today, it's very easy for me to see this happening. It's very easy for me to relate, because like I said already, you know what, in my own experience, I left everything behind. I didn't really care whatsoever what I was leaving. I didn't care that I was leaving my furniture. I didn't care that I was leaving I just didn't care. I didn't care. I figured that, you know what, peace of mind you cannot buy. You understand? You can't buy peace of mind. You can't buy mental health. If you lose your mind in the midst of this person is going to be the same person that goes about telling people that you deserved it, that you brought it upon yourself, that you got involved with bad people. And it's the fact that you're a bad person that made you end up like you did. They will never point a finger at themselves or take responsibility for the evil they have done against you. So this Miss Susan, or Emma as she's called by some, eventually took leave of the marriage, and it's been 10 years now, and all of a sudden this Mr. Emeka Ike is coming back on channels and still speaking about her. Because for a narcissist, many things can be done to them, but the worst thing that you could ever do to them is to leave them or to reject them. In their mind, your leaving them is rejection, and they will never forgive you, and they will keep pursuing you or trying to cause you harm, either by speaking ill about you, which he's doing now online in news shows, saying all kinds of things about her and thinking that she will never come up to speak about what really happened or defend herself, because now everybody knows that most of the things he's saying are not really the way it happened. Because who in their right mind would get kidnappers? Why kidnappers, for crying out loud? Why would you need a kidnapper in this situation? Where did he get that story from, that kidnappers were involved? They were holding their guns to kidnap him, and that at the end of the day, he saw her leaving the gate of his house, and the two kidnappers were at the gates with their guns, but that he was able to evade them, and that it's only his wife and him that were home, so he blames her for them, and now they're the ones threatening him. He's made up this story in his mind about kidnappers and he's sticking to it. And that is another thing that the narcissist does. They make up things in their mind that never exist and they believe it with all their heart. And they believe that to be the case with all their heart. And that is what he's doing, I believe. Oh, tell me what your thoughts. I could be wrong. Like, I'm coming from the traits that I've seen in a narcissist. Or do you believe that Emma, his wife, is to blame? What has she got to gain from living with just the clothing on her back? Leaving her children behind in haste. Because she left the children behind because he wouldn't allow her access to them at that point. They were quite young. I believe she said her youngest was 2 years old. Her daughter was 2 when she left. But for her own sanity, and her own peace of mind, it takes a mother that's alive to be able to come back well after she has taken care of herself, to provide the love and the care that the children require. But a mother that's been beaten down physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally every day, 2 or 3 things can happen to her. She can either lose her life, she can either end up in the hospital with physical injuries that cannot be cured. Like, for example, now when he hit her at the back of her neck, what if that had paralyzed her? She couldn't move for the first 15 minutes. Eventually, she said she started to feel tingles of like the nerve endings connecting, it seemed, she said, that then she could twitch her hands and twitch her legs and she could move after like 15 minutes of laying on the ground. What if it had been permanent? What if she had succumbed to that physical assault and she had been paralyzed and she couldn't walk anymore after that? All in the name of a marriage that's not even worth it, because at this point, her children are seeing her being beaten up. She said her children saw this happen. Her children watch her being physically beaten and maltreated on a daily basis. And the risk of her children eventually being traumatized by this is very high. And the risk of her children also believing that this is the way to treat, especially the boys, to treat their wives in future is almost, insurmountable. That risk is so high, except these children get the proper therapy and the proper social services that are required. So she's not the only one suffering. The children too were suffering. So when she chose to remove herself from that equation, she said at some point she felt she had made the wrong decision, because she would eventually see and hear about how her children were not faring well, but she couldn't do anything because the father, who is Emeka, moved the children to a different city in Abuja and put a nanny to care for them while he kept traveling to Germany back and forth, leaving them in the care of a stranger. Many narcissists, they like you to believe, or outsiders to believe, they care for their children, but they don't really care. They're absent many times, and this is one of the complaints she had. They're absent. She said for months and months he would not be there for the children. And he didn't stop even after she left. These children became the casualty, because when 2 elephants fight, who suffers? It's the grass that suffers. So these children became casualty in the midst of all of this attack and all of this behavior. Try as she could to prevent them from suffering, she couldn't do anything, because in our culture, it's very, very, very clear that the men have the power. It's very clear that the men are the ones that, even if the woman is beaten up, at the end of the day, they will blame her for, why did you say talk back? If the woman gets injured, they will say, if you had not talked back, you would have been injured. If anything happens, they still blame the woman. That is the society that we are from. Nigeria is a society that blames the woman for every single thing in the marriage. Not once will you hear them say to the man, why is this your behavior towards your wife? Or why is this how you act towards your wife? The man is rarely blamed. It's always the woman that is blamed. So I really applaud her for taking herself away from that equation and that environment, so that she could go and get the treatment and the help and the healing that she needed before coming back 10 years after now to see how she can help her children. And her children have been through a lot, obviously, without saying, because obviously having a father like that, it can be, he might be able to pay their bills, like their school fees and everything else, but emotionally one would wonder how he would treat them in an absence. So I would like you guys to comment on what your thoughts are about this story and tell me what you think. Air your views, because many different views exist. There are people who believe that she's to blame for walking away. Some people believe that she should have stayed there and taken care of the children. Some people believe that she only left him because things got difficult for him. Some people believe that she truly did the things he's accusing her of. But she has come out and mentioned how she had nothing to do with closing the school. The school was closed because they hadn't been paying the rent for, I think, a year or so, and the landlord had kicked them out. And there's a picture of the school with the furniture outside. All of the students' desks were put outside. So it had nothing to do with her. The school closing had nothing to do with her. It had everything to do with the fact that he didn't manage the school properly. Even to the point where some of the teachers complained that he didn't pay them. They hadn't been paid their salary for 6 months. So the fact that he's blaming his wife for every single thing under the sun is another massive trait of a narcissist. They target all of their anger against the person who has dared to speak up against their wickedness. Speak up against a narcissist treatment and see their wrath. If they have been getting away with treating you badly, the day you dare speak up, that's the day you become their worst enemy, for daring to speak up and then diminish their self-esteem and their egoistical ideologies about themselves is diminished. And that is the worst thing you can do to a narcissist. And that is what I believe happened in this case. But please be my guest. Please comment and let me know what your thoughts are concerning this story that has been on the limelight for quite a while now. And the discussion is like really, really interesting for me, because I know that, I can just see right away what will happen, because it's like a story that always seems to go in a very similar way. Like the story of a narcissistic, toxic relationship, I believe, with my eyes closed, I can tell, because it's like they always seem to go in the same, it takes the same toll. It happens in a very similar way. So it's not hard for me, but I believe, like I said, I'm not perfect, so I don't know. But please let me know what your thoughts are. I thank you so much for tuning in today to Cannonball Diva Chronicles. Please let me know your thoughts and continue to stay blessed. And Happy New Year to all of you in advance. May this year bring all of us all our heart's desires.
Correct in everything you've just described about the actor Emeka Ike, your ex-husband. You were dealing with a social...
Yes, I was. There was a day that he had finished beating me and I was on the floor looking at him, and then he was walking away. He came back and he was like, "It's not me, it's you making me do it."
If you are correct in everything...
There was a time we went to the hospital, my child was sick, and we didn't have money, and I was trying to negotiate with the hospital if they could treat the child and we'll pay later. And it was taking a little bit of time, and he just came in and was yelling at me, "You're a fool, you don't know how to do things. What, all these people, you can't even talk to them. Who are they? They are beneath you, and you're allowing them to do this and do that." And I got upset. I was like, "Why are you being a jerk?" And excuse my language. And I went off into the car to sit down, and immediately he was coming into the car. His punch was the first thing that I was seeing on my jaw. There was a time we went to the...
So I really want to touch on a very sensitive thing you said. If you feel free to talk about it, please. Because you did say something that you were going through marital issues and you were being accused of something you were not guilty of. But on the internet space, you never came out to clarify anything.
Yeah, it's difficult to clarify yourself because the same people that are bullying you on the internet, they are still there. They're going to say, whatever you say, they were like, "No, don't mind him. He's still missing her. Why, go ahead, move on." They just make you feel like, what's going on? And if you are not prepared to handle it, you'll be crushed. Okay? My secondary school sent...
Has she apologized?
If it was deliberate, there's no apology coming because there's a lot to cover for. Man, I was haunted like a rabbit. Gunmen were coming to my house. Marksmen. Go to Magodo police post. You see my statements. Marksmen were in my house this afternoon. 6 men came to my house the other night. Some men came with gun. Not jokes. Then I was after Segun Arinze because then as a human rights activist, I felt, well, they're coming for me because I'm fighting against them. It was a whole lot of manipulation.
Have you gotten your school back?
How can you get a school back? What's his name? The Minister of Aviation now. What's his name? That lawyer.
Festus Keyamo.
Festus Keyamo?